Top story this week, mind the gap. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Andy, there are gaps that governments actually care about, of course, such as the likeability gap. That's when polls suggest that a candidate is not testing as likeable with the public, so his team will stop at nothing to try and find a particular colour of tie to fix that problem. Then there are the gaps that politicians really couldn't give two shits about, such as the wealth gap. Now, in America, that gap has become more of a Grand Canyon recently, so much so that stuntmen are currently lining up to perform death-defying stunts, such as tightrope walk across the wealth gap, as long as they can find a piece of wire long enough. Recent statistics proved that the income gap between the richest 1% of Americans and the other 99% widened to a record margin in 2012, breaking the previous record set in 1927. And bear in mind that the wealth gap in 1927 in America was between the 2 points of a man wearing a shiny monocle and a child washing its rags in an open sewer. So that was a pretty objectively impressive gap back then.
Well, this has to be seen in historical context, John, because this is a great triumph for America. When these figures were announced, America as a nation went, what's that? Oh, Mr. Khrushchev, you've gone eerily quiet. Stick that in your dacha and collectively farm it. So it's very much a great victory for America. This is really the end point of the Cold War for me.
Well, according to tax filings, the top 1% of US earners collected 19.3% of household income, and that is just what they're filing, Andy. That doesn't take into account their Cayman Island bank accounts or the $100 bills that are stuffed into their comically oversized mattresses. And those statistics don't even focus on the even narrower Oprah percent, which is the very small percentage of people who are Oprah. Now, that group has once again done extremely well over the last 12 months, Andy. Some of these statistics are so horrifying, their impact is almost physical. It's like numbers suddenly have the ability to reach out and slap you in the face. Over the last tax year in the States, the top 10% of richest households represented just under half of all income in the year. And over the last 3 years, 95% of all income gains have gone to the richest 1% of people. Did you feel a physical reaction to those numbers? Didn't it somehow feel that those figures had gone into your ears, travelled through your body, and then spent a few seconds kicking you in the balls? I don't know how that's possible, and I know that it isn't, but someone tell my balls that, Andy, because they feel awful sore right now.
We've had kind of similar discussions over here. George Osborne earlier in the year at the budget, I think, said those with the broadest shoulders should bear the greatest burden. Then stopped for a minute and said, sorry, not greatest burden, I meant flashiest golden cape. Those with the broadest shoulders should definitely wear the flashiest golden cape.
Well, it's not just the complete lack of concern from most wealthy politicians in the face of poverty. It's the inexplicable anger that they have at the poor for somehow getting themselves into this mess. In the UK, Michael Gove, who is Secretary of State for Education, but who also seems that he would feel right at home in a Dickens novel, walking through an orphanage, whacking children with a pointy stick. He made some comments recently about...
To be honest, John, that is actually part of his education policy. So that...
Right, okay. Well, that's exactly. He made some comments recently about food banks, which is punching down so hard, I think he may have dislocated his shoulder. He said during a departmental question session with MPs that users of local food banks can't budget properly, which I guess is true, Andy, if by that you mean to imply that they literally don't have enough money to form a functional budget through which to survive as a human being. If you mean anything other than that, of course, then you are a flaming arsehole. Someone who, I believe in Spanish you would call pendejo en fuego. Pendejo en fuego.
Well, you've been doing some lessons, John.
A little bit. I think that means arsehole on fire, not flaming arsehole, but I'm hoping it gets the basic point across.
Wasn't that a title of a John Denver album?
What, Pendejo on Fuego?
No, Arsehole on Fire.
Yeah, I think it was just before the final album.
Gove did say this. He's basically saying that people are using food banks because of poor economic decisions. And that is true. The only problem is that the economic decisions were not made by the people using the food banks, which must have made those little bits of gravel they were getting taste even more bitter.
Yeah, look, what he's essentially saying seems to be, look, the government should simply help them make better decisions, such as the decision to not be poor. My parents chose not to be poor, and their parents before them. It boggles one's mind to try to understand why one would actively choose to be impoverished, but I suppose some people just love the taste of dirt. Just take your bootstraps and pull yourself up by them. And if you can't afford bootstraps, I simply don't know what to say to you.
This could possibly be paving the way for the next general election, a nationwide cull of the poor. In fact, David Cameron was recently overheard in a one-man press conference in his own bedroom, practising a speech in which he said, what do they actually do? I know the last government cull of the poor, cunningly disguised as World War I, did not prove particularly popular, but I think the majority would accept that poor from other countries are now so much more efficient than our own British poor, and sacrifices will have to be made, literally in some cases. Where's my chainsaw? Bring forth the pleb! Ring, ding, 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 ding.
The current UK government has been widely criticised as being out of touch, but I actually don't think they would understand a poor person, Andy, if they were physically touching them with the sole of their shoe while standing on their face, which is metaphorically essentially what they're currently doing anyway. Because this currently comes on the back of the Conservatives in Britain also standing by their controversial bedroom tax, which docks housing benefit by 14% if welfare recipients in social housing have a second bedroom, something which is objectively not their fault, Andy, and is a massive, and also lines up with a massive shortage of council one-bedroom properties for them to hypothetically move into. But this policy seems to think that you might be able to punish poor people out of their difficult situation, which is like a doctor hoping that a comatose patient will wake up if he repeatedly slams them with a plank of wood. I guess it's theoretically possible, but even on the off chance that they do wake up, they're going to wake up justifiably angry.
Well, that's it. Well, I mean, but this is the right way to do it, John. If you've got a cat that appears to be very, very ill, and you want it to be a bit more sprightly, the way to make it move is to shoot it repeatedly, and it will start twitching. It will definitely start twitching.
The current conservative attitude towards combating poverty seems to be the same attitude that sadomasochists have towards sex. Look, if it doesn't hurt, you are clearly not doing it right.
According to the latest figures, 1 in 3 council tenants affected by the housing benefit cut have fallen behind on rent since the policy took effect. Now, obviously, this has not gone down at all well, and the government have just issued a response to these figures saying, obviously, this is very disappointing and not what we intended with this policy, which was supposed to create equality, not division. Therefore, we will be ruthlessly targeting the remaining 66% to make sure that they fall into debt they can't afford too, or are forced to leave their homes, families and communities, just to see the looks on their faces. F***ing priceless. Lighten up, guys. And many have literally fallen foul of the new regulations, John, in that they have to take on extra jobs dressing as pantomime chickens to publicise International Omelette Awareness Week, just to make ends meet. But interestingly, it's been confirmed today, exclusively to the Bugle, that the Queen has fallen foul of these new housing regulations. It turned out that she had in her homes a total of 174 unoccupied bedrooms, as a result of which she and her current squeeze, Prince Philip, have been relocated to one-bedroom council flat in Brixton, from where Her Majesty will continue to rule her subjects with her characteristic non-committal neutrality, very much a potato fist in a potato glove.